South Africa is an incredibly diverse corner of the world, not only for terrestrial life, but in the marine environment as well. Gansbaai, a small town in the Western Cape, is home to the Dyer Island ecosystem, where you can find the marine Big Five. A cornucopia of sharks, whales and dolphins can be found in these waters. Also vital species in the ecosystem are the Cape fur seals on Giza Rock and the endangered African penguin inhabiting the adjacent Dyer Island. Unfortunately, these animals have all faced threats resulting in population decline. The hardest hit? The smallest of the five, the African penguin. The African penguin is one of the smallest birds in the penguin family and is endemic to southern Africa. Despite their size, they are perfectly adapted to the marine environment. They can swim to speeds of up to 15 kilometers an hour and dive to depths of 130 meters. The once numerous African penguin is now facing serious decline, having lost 99% of its original population. A bird previously in its millions now stands at only 13,300 breeding pairs. How did this happen? African penguins are ground-dwelling birds, so in order to protect their eggs, they build nests in the 4 to 6 meter layer of their own guano. However, humans soon realized guano had its uses to us, as well as the hard-working penguins that produced it. Fertilizer, the white gold. This was often exported to the UK for £10 or 580 rand per tonne. Historically, we harvested as much as we could, as quickly as possible, leaving what was once a perfect breeding ground bare and nestless. While they did adapt, their success rate was much lower, partially due to the lack of protection from their natural predators, but also from their newfound predators, humans. Apparently, it isn't just the British who enjoy eggs for breakfast. The South African Parliament would previously have had penguin eggs on Wednesdays, resulting in further demand for penguin products. 13 million recorded eggs were extracted from the islands, but estimations are almost double that. To put that in perspective, between the 1920s and mid-1950s, 48% of all penguin eggs were harvested, consistently cutting the population of the next generation in half, pushing them beyond recovery. Despite the fact both guano and egg harvesting has since been banned in 1949, the devastating impact on the penguins hasn't stopped. Gansbaai is a small fishing town and commercial fishing spot. These seas are constantly under pressure from overfishing, with large trawlers decimating the fish stocks, particularly of sardines and anchovies, penguin food. Not only does this present issues for the fish species themselves, but also the keystone predators that rely on them. African penguins are having to swim further and further afield in search of food, often leaving both parents and chicks starving. Away from their parents at such a young age leaves a chick vulnerable to both predation and starvation. Here you can see two individuals. The penguin on the right is a young chick going through its first molt, and the one on the left is a blue, older than the chick, already with its first waterproof coat, but dramatically smaller.
This one is a blue that fledged. He was forced to fledge because his parents went into molt and couldn't look after him. And you can just see he's way too tiny and too small.
Typically, parents return to feed the chicks, providing them with a buffer layer of fat while they learn to fish. However, when the parents don't return, these chicks are forced to molt early and fish for themselves in order to survive. This blue should be taller and heavier than the chick on the right, but the lack of food provided from its parents has stunted its growth.
That's what a chick should look like. This guy's older and he's a quarter of the size.
This is the reality of overfishing. The result? Starvation. This human-induced issue has had its further knock-on effects, increasing natural predation. Two species that previously lived in harmony are now head-to-head. Reducing fish stocks also impacts the adjacent seal population, and they have begun to get lazy. Allowing penguins to do the hard work, Cape fur seals have been documented to ambush them on return, ripping their stomach open to consume the contents, leaving the birds stunned and dead. A combination of the aforementioned issues is causing a continued loss of 90 penguins a week. A multifaceted problem like this requires many solutions. This series of unfortunate events has left the African penguin listed as endangered, with a predicted extinction rate as soon as 2026. and this is why every bird counts. But the fight for their survival isn't over yet. Here in Achonsbai, Dyer Island Conservation Trust is linked to their African Penguin and Seabird Sanctuary, or APSS. Here, a dedicated team of conservationists run the sanctuary in an attempt to stabilise and rebuild the local colony of African penguins on Dyer Island. APSS works with the island's managing authority, Cape Nature, to remove sick and injured birds from the island and bring them into rehabilitation.
You can see his tail, the pruning gland. Soon it's going to be white, or the whole body, if we're not giving him electrolytes and enough fish for him to grow new feathers. So he's got to get his tuxedo before Christmas. Okay.
The number of residents here at APSS changes on a monthly or even weekly basis, but there are 9 permanent residents who stay due to enduring injury. Aside from our well-known personalities, the number of birds in the sanctuary fluctuates entirely depending on how the health of the local population is. Mass spread of disease results in a high influx of penguins, while others may come in individually due to seal bites or fishing line entanglement, such as Stompy here. Here we have Stompy, who got entangled with fishing line due to human interaction. Therefore, treatment differs depending on the condition the bird is presented in. On entrance, new birds have their blood taken to ensure no contamination should any new birds be affected by malaria or other diseases. The blood is taken from the foot of the bird and drawn out to collect in a tube. This blood is scraped across a slide to be observed under a microscope. Following this, the blood is also spun in a centrifuge in order to separate the white and red blood cells for analysis. Once cleared to be introduced to the current residents, they are weighed, fed, medicated and swum daily as a group. Often birds struggle or are too weak to free feed, hence we frequently have to force feed the birds. While this may seem difficult, it is key to the survival of these individuals. If they do not feed and gain weight, they won't survive when put back into the wild. They are fed sardines and the appropriate medication is inserted into the fish. Only when at a healthy weight and treated can a penguin be released back onto the island.
So we're trying to rehydrate him. He's been here for 3 days now. You can tell he's hungry.
But rehabilitation alone will not prevent the extinction of this iconic species. We need to be proactive. In an attempt to give the penguins the homes that we took away, APSS have been deploying these houses out on Dyer Island to give the breeding pairs a chance to lay eggs and breed successfully. These are the houses we're currently producing for the penguins. They can be sponsored for 500 Rand and they'll be placed out on Dyer Island for a breeding pair. Nowhere else in South Africa or in the world will you be able to buy a house on an island in a sunny location for less than £25. It may seem hard to help unless directly working with these animals, but even being educated and aware on their conservation status and situation, you'll make conscious decisions in your day-to-day lives to help better their situation.